Okay, this is a blog by a Maverick traveller titled 46 South Going on 47 Invercargill and Bluff, published on the 1st of February 2019. After my car blew up, I bought a cheap one from some young people to run for a few months till I could afford a good car again. But the bumpers on the cheap car were broken and just about falling off, and the other glass had fallen out of the passenger side mirror as well. So I figured I needed to drive to Invercargill, the nearest city to Queenstown and the southernmost city in New Zealand, known as Invers to the local, to get the relevant bits and pieces. I also wanted to do some shopping for sandals and get a pedicure for my bunion feet, as Queenstown is notoriously expensive for that sort of thing. I travelled to Invercargill by driving south from Queenstown on State Highway 6. State Highway 1 continues southward to Bluff. I've added the names of some other local attractions I'll talk about below. I set off on the 18th of January, which is high summer here. The day was gloriously warm, but the next 2 days became wrap-up days, as they often are at the south end of New Zealand, even in summer. Up to now, Invercargill has been overshadowed by flashier and more adventuresome tourist destinations like Queenstown, famous for things like bungee jumping and skiing, as well as the undoubted charms of Lake Whakatipu. But Queenstown seems to be full up and overpriced. Many backpackers and freedom campers are also driven out of Queenstown and its restrictive environs. The fortunes of old-fashioned and off-the-beaten-track places like Invercargill often improve when people get tired of the Queenstowns of this world and go looking for a more relaxing sort of holiday. Invercargill may not do bungee jumping and skiing, but it's still the gateway to the wilderness of southern Fiordland, where the Humpbridge Track is located, the coastal wilderness of the Catlins east of the city, the lengthy beaches of 26-kilometre-long Oreti Beach, where Burt Munro used to race, the world's fastest Indian, and the similarly lengthy beaches of Tuwaiwai Bay and Tortoise Bay. The town of Bluff, most southerly on the New Zealand mainland, Slope Point, the southernmost point of the South Island, and Stewart Island, Rakiora, further to the south, a large island that is now one of a handful of international dark sky sanctuaries. There's a satellite image of Invercargill and Bluff and the coast to the west, showing Humpbridge Brown just northwest of Tuwaiwai Bay and the Oreti Beach between Riverton and Invercargill. The beaches are clearly visible, even though they are well over 25 kilometres long. There's also a satellite image of Invercargill and Bluff and the coast to the east, with Tortoise Bay, the third giant beach in the area. To the east of Bluff, past Fort Trose. Note also the lengthily dotted north-south trail through Slopedown, Catlins, Forest Park and Progress Valley to the sea. Invercargill has a lot of beautiful old buildings and parklands, which I've written about in an earlier post. The large, classy Queen's Park joins on to a so-called town belt of parkland that encompasses the inner city. The town belt is shaped like a trident with Otepuni Gardens, through which flows the Otepuni stream as the middle prong. The downtown area is thus divided up into two precincts and an arrangement very similar to the Adelaide Park lands, except that in the case of Invercargill, the railway yards and the industrial district of Western Invercargill, probably still a swamp in the 1800s, form the western side of the downtown precinct. Then there's a satellite view showing most of Invercargill. The name of Queen's Park has been added. Clearly visible is the Invercargill town belt of parkland, which forms three sides of a box south of Queen's Park, west of Ells Road and around into Appleby plus Otepuni Gardens. There is also a significant suburban extension of the downtown parklands further up the Otepuni stream beyond Ells Road between Richmond and Georgetown. Such encompassing parklands were a common thing in colonial New Zealand and in some towns and cities in Australia too, such as Adelaide. Here's a more detailed aerial photo of a part of the central area, followed by a historical photo and some photos of my own taken inside areas highlighted with yellow ellipses. You can also see the Otepuni Gardens and stream in this aerial photo as well. Downtown Invercargill with yellow ellipses around features and photos following the crescent. The South African War Memorial is the Invercargill War Clock Tower, the Old Bank of South Wales on the corner of D and Tay Streets, and the Civic Theatre and Old Town Hall further east on Tay Street. Part of Otepuni Gardens is prominent towards the bottom. And there's photos of each of those. All in all, old colonial cities like Invercargill and Adelaide often have a lot of character and public amenity and need to be kept that way. On the other hand, anything to do with petrol and motor racing is a big thing in Invercargill, thanks to the influence of people like Bert Munro, no doubt. Or to put it in another way, Bert Munro didn't race up and down Oriti Beach all by himself. I went to Tere Tonga Park, the home of non-beach motor racing in Invercargill and its surrounding region, which is known as Southland. There's also Transport World, an absolutely world-class double transport museum founded by the late H.W. Bill Richardson, a prominent Invercargill trucking company proprietor and obviously passionate enthusiast for anything that ran on rubber. One of those people who had diesel for blood, as you may say. Bill Richardson's company now has the more corporate-sounding name of HWR and has indeed since diversified into real estate. More on that later. There are two individual museums on the Transport World site. Bill Richardson Transport World, which bills itself as the largest private automotive museum of its type in the world, and Classic Motorcycle Mecca, which aims to be Australia's premier motorcycle museum. To call something Mecca might not be regarded as too woke in a more cosmopolitan sort of city. One or two cafes had to drop that name, but then again, Invercargill really is a wind your watch back 30 years sort of place. What raises an interesting point, Invercargill has started to change since I was there last. Tourism is up in Invercargill, as is homelessness, and Airbnb is catching on too, although it's not yet expensive. I got a palace for $30 or about 20 US. This is a lot cheaper and better than staying at a backpacker's. The South Island Museum and Art Gallery in Queen's Park is closed due to earthquake risk, pending redevelopment and earthquake risks, and the cost of refurbishment is also being used as a pretext to demolish almost the whole of Invercargill's oldest and most historic city block between T, D, Esk and Calvin Streets, across the way from the Crescent and the South African War Memorial. Here's a video of me walking around the area and looking at the frontages. The buildings across the road that I wonder about at the end are safe. I've got more to say about all that in another post called From Heritage to Glass and Girders. I am in Invercargill and this is D Street, and these lovely buildings and a mall are going to be coming down. And also here's the other side of the road, and I don't know if that's going to be coming down either. Probably not. Out and about in Inver's. It was on Saturday the 19th when I was shopping for sandals, getting a pedicure and looking for car parks that the locals I ran into told me about their crazy council-sponsored redevelopment scheme. My new Birkenstock sandals. Like just about everyone who isn't from Invercargill, I've heard or noticed nothing about it till I went there and met local people. It's amazing how much can go on in a town without anybody who doesn't live there finding out about it, even in the modern industrial information age. On the Saturday, I also managed to make enough time to get to Queen's Park, where I caught up with about 100 runners on a club called Invercargill Park Run. This seems to be an arrangement where busy people work towards a competitive race around the park once a month. I met a woman who was a marshal guiding the direction of the run. We spoke for 20 minutes. Her name was Marie, and I found that I had met her socially 8 years before, a friend of a friend. Her husband was Ant, was also a Facebook friend of mine, as it turned out. We ended up going to the park's gilt-edged service cafe, the Cheeky Llama, and talking more about the redevelopment scheme and other things. The next day, my search for a second-hand bumpers led me to a place called Demolition World, run by another woman named Lee, who turned out to have nothing to do with car parts at all. Instead, it was a recreated town made up of bric-a-brac from the colonial era to the 1960s, stuff that Lee saved while on-selling more valuable recycled materials, timber mostly. One of the old signs outside the front entrance promised panel beating services, so I thought it must be an auto junkyard. It turned out it was just a sign, and that Lee was a sign collector. I was so astounded. Demolition World has 50 shops which recreate the past, a church where people are getting married in the old style, a bar with one style bottled beer, a dairy, New Zealand expression or corner shop from the 50s with 1950s containers for the product, a circus, a shop with old toys, a blacksmith shop, a railway station and the old horse cart and an old medical centre. It's a work of art. Lee, who has had 7 children, doesn't charge other than a gold coin donation, meaning $1 or $2, not real gold. Blustery Bluff. Then finally I went off to Bluff to climb the Bluff Hill and take some more photos. Though isolated and remote by New Zealand standards and completely at the wrong end of the country as far as the rest of the world is concerned, Bluff is nevertheless a surprisingly important port. Part of the reason for this is that it serves the T.Y. Point aluminium smelter, a plant that uses cheap, possibly undervalued hydroelectric power to smelt some of the world's purest aluminium. T.Y. Point was commissioned in 1971. I think in these days the politicians had a vision of New Zealand as the Sweden or Switzerland of the South Pacific, making expensive added value products such as racing bike components out of the aluminium. But these days 90% of it is exported as ingots. Bluff Hill is officially Bluff Hill Motupohoi, the island of vines. It isn't quite an island, as you can see. Bluff in the natural harbour of Avarua Bay, plus a part of the amazing beach of Tortoise Bay. The T.Y. Point aluminium smelter lies across the harbour entrance from Bluff. A closer aerial view of Bluff and its significant harbour works. Names of the hill added. There's a link to the walks on Bluff Hill also on the blog. By the time I got to Bluff, the January weather had turned into the opposite of summer, as it often does in these parts, which lie in the latitude of Patagonia and face south toward Antarctica. Yeah, well, I decided, look at the weather, I'm dressed for winter. And my God, it was beautiful a few days ago. There's a Bluff Hill, I'm going up there. And then I thought I'd just have a bit of a nosy around this area. But you can see Bluff there and the lighthouse. And yeah, so my car needs a bumper. My car's from Invercargill, that's what I'm there. What a bumper that is. I've just got a side mirror. Well, this my back bumper needs doing. And there's my side mirror. A disaster! The attractions of Bluff are a bit like Britain's famous Skegness is so bracing tourist poster, which makes the best of a place that can't exactly claim to be the Riviera. So it is for Bluff and Southland in general, even though this part of the country has stunning beaches that would attract millions if only they were in a balmier location. Here I am outside a famous sign. 784 kilometres to Wellington, 1,401 kilometres to Cape Reinga, and at the northern tip of the North Island, let alone anywhere that's actually in another country. There's an old gun emplacement on the hill, created just in case anyone ever tried to attack the most southerly port in the British Empire. They didn't. There's also some significant Māori culture on the island of Vines, although South Island Māori faced a harsher environment and were fewer in number than in the North Island. The area is known for its fat juvenile seabirds known as titi or mutton birds, which would be regularly harvested and preserved, and thus help to sustain human life. The Māori concept for the te puni and its application to motu poihoi. Finally, this is me trying to narrate a video outside the view down to the town of Bluff and the T.Y. Point aluminium smelter. Looking down at Bluff, T.Y. Point, and way over here is where I was earlier.